Hey, RFK was just picked by Donald Trump for United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. Donald Trump says that people are being crushed by the industrial food complex, deceptive drug companies, and are being exposed to pollutants and chemicals in our foods, especially our children. RFK has a lot of plans, and I want to talk about some of these, as well as give you some insights into my thoughts on nutrition. I'm going to keep those towards the end, or I might sprinkle some of these between here, because I think some of my thoughts might actually be helpful and useful for you for whatever they're worth. But let's first start with RFK. RFK wants to clean out entire departments of the FDA, and he wants to start actually making the Food and Drug Administration do something about the food part. See, generally when we think about the FDA, we just think about medicine, vaccines, and I specifically remember, or other drugs, and I specifically remember during COVID, this was probably in about November and October of 2020 when they were talking about approving the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson vaccines. I remember them, the panel that was reviewing the vaccines, and the conclusion they came to was basically like, oh, well, the vaccines will probably be better than not having the vaccines. And obviously, the stock market cheered the approval of vaccines and everything, but then we started finding out, oh no, if you don't aspirate a needle when you inject it in your arm, well, when somebody injects it in your arm, and you don't check to make sure that you're not hitting a blood vessel, then you could potentially inject this mRNA protein into your heart and cause myocarditis. It's like a direct dose from here to there. It's so close. And it's concentrated, right? It's not being diffused by your liver or your intestines or otherwise. So this is a big problem. But those are things that are also very difficult, understandably so, for the FDA to review under accelerated timeframes, which, in fairness, they were under via Operation Warp Speed. But RFK is a vaccine skeptic, and he thinks that the best place to start with health is actually with food. And I have to say I really support this. I'm not as big of a vaccine skeptic as RFK is, but I'm a big fan of food. I used to work at Red Robin, and I was disgusted by understanding that when I asked my manager, how can we keep children's buns on the shelves back here for 6 months? And they're like, bro, look at the ingredients. It's not even really bread. And so I pick up the, giant order of children's buns, and I'm like, there are like 72 ingredients. I mean, not that extreme, but there are a lot of ingredients to these children's buns. Like, what even is this? And this is very much the same sentiment that RFK is talking about. He wants to start with the food part. He complains that 75% of what's in our supermarkets is super processed, and that's contributing to what we have in America, which is a sick care system, not a health care system. He thinks that food should be the first resolution that we have towards solving our health. He's frustrated that fast food even is unhealthier in the United States than in Europe. Why in England do French fries have 3 ingredients, and in America they have 17 ingredients? He argues that in America, we get to use a lot of cheaper ingredients that are actually considered unhealthy in Europe and are banned in Europe. One thing that I like to make an analogy regarding this about is multivitamins. The multivitamin industry is, let's say, going to give you a multivitamin for your B vitamins, right? You're not going to get all of the thousands of various different micro versions of that nutrient that exists, like a diversified, B vitamin, a B6 or whatever it might be. You're going to get the cheapest and most readily available version of that. People hear vitamin A, they think all vitamin A is the same, but vitamin A is actually just a grouping of thousands of different vitamins. And when you take a vitamin A supplement, you're really just taking the most popular form of that, rather than getting that vitamin A from your food. A, D, E, K are going to be your fat-soluble vitamins, and these are important, in my opinion, to get a diversified source from, because they stay in your body longer than those water-soluble vitamins that you'll really just pee out, like a B vitamin. And so this is just sort of an interesting note. Like, most people aren't educated in that. Most people have never even heard of what I just said. And I think RFK, even though, some people don't necessarily like his past, or they think he's loony or whatever, I think he brings new ideas to government and to an institution that hasn't seen these new ideas in forever. So I love hearing him saying I'm against seed oils. He doesn't tell us why, but I can tell you one of the reasons I'm against seed oils. It totally screws up your omega-3 to omega-6 balance. Look, we're supposed to have one omega-3 to every every 4 omega-6 that we intake. Unfortunately, seed oils and processed foods put the American diet at close to a ratio of 20 omega-6s to 1 omega-3s. 3s you're going to get from like flaxseed, fish oil, walnuts. Omega-6s you're going to typically get from any kind of seed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, any kind of processed foods, fried foods, blah, 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 blah. And you can actually neutralize your oil intake by replacing your 6s with healthier oils like avocado oils or an omega-9 like olive oil. So that way you can keep that 6 ratio down and your 3 ratio up. These are things that I think actually RFK could help the world learn about, and I'm really excited about that. Even though he doesn't mention some of those things, I'm bringing this up because I kind of consider myself a little bit of a nutrition nut. I love it, and I also love nuts, and I also love fruits. So people call me nutty, people call me fruity. But what can I say? I love a handful of thick, salty nuts. So, RFK then goes on to talk about how the FDA should promote alternatives to drugs in treatments and shouldn't only go directly towards advertising drugs. Maybe we need to look at psychedelics. Maybe shrooms could be something that would be a healthier option for helping people solve their mental health problems or whatever other issues they have. He also opposes fluoride in water. I'm personally not the biggest fan of chemicals anywhere. I understand why they do it because it helps reduce cavities somewhere around 25%, at least the dental associations say that, for children especially, but then also adults. But, it's probably okay, but it's still another chemical. And, it's not just fluoride. We have to consider all of the sources of chemicals that we ingest, whether they're in our diet drinks, our candies, our regular food, our quote-unquote healthy food, nutrition bars or supplements or whatever. It's a giant mess. So I have to say I'm hopeful that RFK can make some big changes as the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm excited by this appointment. This is just breaking news, and it's worth noting that, just to clarify that, the Department of Health and Human Services does govern the FDA. So consider that. And what else do we have here? Health and Human Services. I also want to take a peek at... let's see here. Let's just take an additional quick look here. Keep in mind, if in the meantime you want some updates on news and catalysts and things that are going on with long-term stock trades, short-term stock trade ideas, or otherwise, you can get a totally free alpha report from me. Just go to meetkevin.com/alpha, and you'll get that. But yeah, they cover the Indian Health Service, the Health Resources and Services Administration, the CDC, National Institute for Health, Substance Abuse, Mental Health Services. They cover Office for Civil Rights, the Office of the Inspector General, Public Health and Social Services Emergency Fund, Administration for Children and Families, Administration for Community Living. They do a lot. So anyway, RFK, now the boss man. All right, folks, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.